Hello and welcome to the Repress Pod, the podcast that provides information about dairy reproductive management from top dairy reproductive physiologists at land-grant universities. My name is Dr. Victor Gomez-Leon, and I'm an extension dairy specialist for Kansas State University.
My name is Dr. Jennifer Spencer, and I'm an extension dairy specialist for Texas A&M University. And we're here today with Dr. Jeff Stevenson, who's a professor at Kansas State University and a renowned bovine reproductive physiologist. So during this podcast, we will be discussing body condition score during the transition period and how that affects reproduction. So we're going to begin, and we'd like you to explain a little bit of why evaluating dairy cattle body condition score is such an effective way to assess cows before and after partition as compared to body weight.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because there is probably in the minds of many people that there's probably not a lot of difference between assessing body weight and body condition. But body weight alone is really not a good indicator of body reserves, because body weight is affected by so many other factors, such as parity, the stage of lactation a cow's in, her frame size, gestation, length, and breed. When we talk about body reserves, we're talking about storage of adipose tissue primarily, but cows also store energy reserves or in muscle or muscle protein. So body condition scores were developed many, many years ago to measure or reflect the amount of fatness of a cow. In a large study that we have conducted, which actually is a meta-analysis of a large number of studies that we've done in the past, we found in terms of milk yield, there's more milk produced by cows that actually lose more body condition. And that's true for older cows as well, but it's a little bit different in older cows. So let's talk about primipars cows for a minute. In primipars cows that lose more than a half a body condition score, they're actually going to produce anywhere from 2 to 3 kilograms more milk than cows that lose less than a half a body score. If you go to second lactation cows, that principle still seems to hold true. The cows that are losing more than a half a body score between calving and first insemination, they're going to produce 2 to 3, maybe 4 kilograms more milk. But when you get to the third or greater lactation cows, there tends not to be too much of a relationship between body condition score loss and milk yield. There's pretty consistent whether they lose more than a half a body condition score or not. They're going to be in about the same range of about 58 to 59 kilograms in the study that we looked at. So in younger cows that lose more body weight, first and second lactation cows lose more body condition, body condition, they tend to produce more milk. But that translates into some problems with fertility. There's a tendency for those cows that lose more than a half a body score to actually have a little bit lower first service conception or first service pregnancy rate. And if we look at pregnancy loss, there's a little bit more pregnancy loss in those cows that lose body condition score. The statistics there are at the trend level. They're about 0.1, 0.15. So it's not consistent, but it looks like across this large data set that we looked at, the losses in body condition score have a relatively small effect on fertility and pregnancy loss.
You have talked a little bit about fertility already, but how does body condition score would affect postpartum disease, cyclicity, ear temperature, behavior at calf or after calving? I know you have a recent study on that topic.
A really good study that was done in California a number of years ago by Ricardo Chabel. they found that if there's any loss in body condition score during the dry period, cows will have more postpartum uterine disease and more problems with indigestion. They'll also require more treatments with antimicrobial products, anti-inflammatories, and other supportive therapy, and they'll have a reduced likelihood of pregnancy. And so that's why the loss in body condition score during the dry period is critical. We want to prevent that. They also found that cows that gained body condition score during the dry period actually produced more milk, more fat, more milk fat and milk protein, and they actually had lower somatic cell counts. And so what that's telling us, if cows are not at the proper body condition score at dry off, we have an opportunity to increase body condition score that can have favorable effects on milk characteristics. We also know that healthy cows will cycle back sooner. They'll ovulate the first time earlier. They'll have more favorable metabolite profiles. In other words, they'll have lower concentrations of free fatty acids or NEFAs, which is indicating that they're not metabolizing as much adipose tissue. They'll have less beta hydroxybutyrate, which is one of the ketone bodies that's produced because the liver can't keep up with that extra supply of free fatty acids. They tend to have lower calcium and lower haptoglobin. And haptoglobin is a protein that's produced by the liver that kind of assesses the inflammatory responses of the cow. They also have less rectal temperatures, and these things are all occurring in the first 14 days after calving. So healthy cows also spend more time ruminating after calving than their non-healthy peers, and they tend to eat more and are more active. So those three behavioral characteristics are important, obviously, to milk production and later reproduction. They're ruminating more, eating more, and they're more active. That means they're healthy. And these early ovulating cows also have lower concentrations of free fatty acids and beta hydroxybutyrate, lower rectal temperatures, and with the automated ear tags that we had in our cows in this study, they also had lower ear surface temperatures, which are reflective, but not the same as body core temperature, but they're reflective of what's happening to rectal or body core temperature. And these cows that are ovulating earlier, and in this study, there was 160 cows, and half of them ovulated before day 33 postpartum, half after day 33 postpartum. The early ovulating cows spent more time eating, they were more active. Rumination and resting times were similar to late ovulating cows, but the fact that they're eating more and more active tells us that they're probably why they're ovulating earlier, because they're more healthy.
And what would the ideal body condition score be from calving to AI, the subsequent AI?
Yeah, that's a good question. If we can get to that target, let's say we get to the target of 3, a body condition score of 3, we don't want cows to lose more than about a half a body score between calving and first insemination. The more the cow loses in body condition score, the more she's going to have increase the probability of having a poor conception incidence at first service. So cows that are over-conditioned when they calve, they're going to lose more body condition and body weight. And that's why we targeted about 3 so that they only lose about a half a body score until insemination time. And that seems to be the best way to manage cows based on the data that we have available right now.
So I kind of want to discuss now a little bit about heat stress. So in the high plains, we deal with a lot of that heat stress, as you know. So can you explain how that heat stress might be affecting body condition score and how that is contributing to some of these reproductive inefficiencies that we see?
You know, as I used to tell students, you know, heat stress happens in every state of the United States. even in Alaska. It may be 1 day long in Alaska, but they have heat stress for 1 day. But if you get into South Texas and South Florida and in the southwestern part of the United States, at South Texas, or even up in the Panhandle of Texas, where there's a lot of dairies, heat stress can endure for several months. And so the duration of heat stress is that we all face as dairy farmers throughout the United States. Now, the problem then that comes with heat stress is a cow or a heifer is going to have an increase in their maintenance requirements because they're going to spend more of their maintenance requirements trying to keep themselves cool. And so heat abatement becomes very, very important. So if we're going to have if heat stress is going to decrease feed intake and milk yield and conception, it's obviously going to have some effect on body condition score because of particularly cows that calve during the summer, during the periods of heat stress, they're going to be metabolizing more body condition or more body fat and some muscle tissue because their dietary intake is going to be less in response to heat stress. And so we'd expect that heat stress is going to have a negative effect on body condition score. But I don't know that anyone's really assessed that in a study where they've looked at body condition scores well enough in, say, dry and transition cows, early postpartum cows, in summer calvings versus winter calvings to see if there's a difference there. The study that we did, it did encompass cows that were calved between December and August, but we didn't really look at the effects of heat stress on body condition score. We have those data. We'd probably go back and look at them, but we'd expect it to be negative, obviously, as we'd all guess.
Definitely makes sense. So one thing we wanted to ask you was what opportunities or what things may be available for producers and their employees for body condition scoring training? Because it does take some training, and we just wanted to see what opportunities you would suggest that are available.
Well, there's a number of our pharmaceutical and dairy industry companies that have produced body condition score charts that shows visually what a cow should look like. There's a number of those available on different websites. Penn State has one. I've seen others. The difficulty of doing training virtually on a computer, it's kind of hard to see differences in body condition score when you're looking at cows in a two-dimensional form. And so it really needs to be done in a hands-on kind of thing where people can actually palpate the cow. And personally, when I body score, we always body scored cows either on palpation rails or in a chute so we could actually palpate them. And I think it makes them much more accurate because you can actually feel the differences. And I found, as the literature also verifies, if you look between the hook bones back to the pin bones and concentrate on that area and the short rib area, that's where most of the emphasis is placed on getting a body condition score correctly done. So in order to train people, I think people just need to go to a dairy. They need to select 4, 5, 6 different cows that are under condition, normal condition, over condition, and actually let people palpate those cows and look at the diagrams that are available. And that's the best way probably to teach that. It's a skill that can be learned, just like artificial insemination, and people can become very adept at it and very accurate. And if we use that kind of data in managing dry cows so we don't lose body condition score, that's where it all starts, that late lactation and dry period. And that would be a very effective use of time for training people because it's not something we generally do.
So we really appreciate your insight and everything today, especially, the body condition score during that transition period and how important that is to evaluate dairy cows because of their future success. And we also wanted to thank our listeners. And if you have any questions or suggestions about topics, please contact myself, Jennifer Spencer, or Dr. Victor Gomez. And you can find our contact information in the description below. We hope you have a wonderful day and stay tuned for our next podcast.
Thank you, Jeff.
Okay.
It was a good discussion. Thanks.
It really was.
Very much. Yeah.